To me, though, there's three types of speakers. There's inspirational. Let me tell you my story. Let me inspire you. Then there's aspirational, and I use it kind of like cooking. I don't know how to cook, so this was my best analogy. An inspirational guy says, here's all the great things I did to be a cook. An aspirational speaker says, if you learn how to do these things, you can eat healthy, or you can have a better lifestyle, you can aspire. And an educational guy says, I'm going to show you how to cook. So I'm not overly inspirational or aspirational, I'm educational. I'm going to teach you guys some things that are very sequential, almost like you might find in a cookbook. And part of the reason I do this too, to be fully transparent, is it's ego. Because half the time I'm up against guys like Chris or Fred. I'm up against guys that are inspirational and aspirational, and they get better ratings than I do because they're entertainers. So I like to do that. But here's what I do. I talk about something called isolation and a new thing we have called bullseye beliefs. And I'm going to show you guys some things, some of which is psychology, some of which is going to be sales, but some of it's going to be very specific to the topic tonight. And I do a lot of role playing. There are no trick questions. I eliminated those. I used to have one trick question in the slide. I took it out, but I would warn you. But if I say isolation, what does that mean to you guys? What comes to mind?
Away from everyone else.
Away from everyone else, alone. What else? Single, quarantine. The stories that we tell ourselves in our head are very interesting. It's a great book from years ago called What to Say When You Talk to Yourselves. And the topic tonight is called sales. I taught sales training, wow, for 8 years. We trained probably 8,000 people. And my goal was to get you to come work for me to go sell life insurance at night on full commission to your friends. How many of you would sign up for that deal? Yeah, I like you guys already, but I learned how to emotionally manipulate people and build these different stories. But we used to talk about the power of no. Right? Isolation's about being alone. Well, it's not really all negative, but that's what we tell ourselves. And so if I put this picture up and say isolation's a good thing, but I put this dark drab picture, this is the story we tell ourselves. And when I talk about the power of no, from a sales standpoint, I used to tell people, if you're a fireman and you go to work and you have a bad day at work, what's the worst thing that might happen to you?
You die.
You die. Policeman,
You
go
die.
to work, you have a bad day.
You die.
You die. Construction worker, you're working high in a building, you slip and have a bad day. What's the worst that'll happen to you?
You die.
A salesperson, you pick up the phone and somebody tells you no. What's the worst that happened to you?
You want to die.
You may want to, but a no isn't going to kill you. But we tell ourselves these stories. We get so scared. All right, I'm going to show you the psychology of how you instantly reframe what's in your mind. I'm going to forever change the word isolation. If I put this picture up and said, isolation is a good thing. Every time you thought of the word isolation, if that picture popped in your mind, you have a completely different frame set. Your body feels different. Your frame of reference feels different. So what we have to learn initially is a lot of sales that I learned is about the psychology of the stories we tell ourselves. And words. Words are very specific. And a lot of times we take words on a negative, and we have to always learn to try and spin them in a positive. And so isolation to me has nothing to do about being alone. I tell people all the time, isolation is a good thing. Oh, like being alone. I'm like, I didn't say that. To me, it's about being specific or focused or targeted. Any of you guys work out? I don't. I hate it. I play soccer, but I can admit that. I hate working out, but I used to have to because I played soccer for years, and we had to isolate our arms one day and isolate our. You target things. You get specific. You get focused. That to me is what sales is about. That's what the isolation is about. Is how can you determine what you want? And so one of the tricks I do is, can you stay focused? I'm going to put this up. If you guys have seen it, don't give it away. But it's a trick. It's an optical illusion. If you guys look at this, if you don't stare at it very much, it's kind of spinning and moving. I want every one of you to pick a black dot, stare at a dot, and tell me what happens when you stare at it.
Still.
So one person said it. What happens? Stare at one dot.
Everything else
It stops. To me, this is about being focused. This is the world spinning around you. This is your boyfriend or girlfriend you're upset at. Here's your dog who ate your homework. Here's the traffic on the way. Like everything's a distraction. How can you become focused? How can you say, you know what, all of this stuff doesn't matter. I'm going to focus and try and get the world to stop spinning around me. That's a lot of what I talk about. So the new thing we're doing is called bullseye belief. We used to call this tornado technique because it's about a tornado, but I learned that most people have never seen one. They haven't been in the South. They kind of couldn't remember it. So now we talk about bullseye, and I'm going to show you guys some specific techniques for sales that work for customers. It can work for funding if you're trying to raise money. It can work for identifying talent. The techniques I'm going to show you work for basically any of them, but it works a little bit differently. Before we start there, though, it's something I created years ago called a be-do-have paradigm. How many of you guys want to have cool, are we being taped, Judy? All right.
Yes.
How many of you want to have cool stuff? We all want cool stuff, right? And what is that? We have to figure out, well, what do we want to have? Like, do we want a house? Do we want a car? Do we want to travel? Do we want more money? Do we want a cool relationship? Do we want a cool dog? What do we want to have? But in order to have things, there's certain things we have to do. You can't just have things. It's the story I used to tell for the guy. Every day he prays to God, God, let me win the lottery. God, if you let me win the lottery, I'll be such a great person. I'll donate to my church. I'll do all of this. And one day the heavens open up and a voice booms down and the guy looks up. He's like, what is that? And God looks down at him and said, hey, buddy, at least buy a ticket. Right? A lot of people sit around and they want to have all these things, but they aren't willing to do the things necessary. They aren't willing to make the calls. They aren't willing to step out of their comfort. They aren't willing to sit here on whatever. I don't know what time zone I'm in. I don't know what today. But whatever day today is, you guys are here. Most people aren't willing to do that. But to do that, this is where we have to start. You have to be the kind of person in your head that's willing to do what other people aren't willing to do to have what everybody else wants to have. So it doesn't start at the bottom, it starts here. We have to be a different kind of person. This one was one of my favorite ones. Does anybody know what you can control? There's all these things going on in life. I boiled it down. There's only 2 things you can control, and one's extremely important. Anybody want to guess?
Your reactions?
Bingo. Yeah. I like the class already. Your actions, but it's your attitudes towards those actions. You're on your way in. People are like, oh, well, how's traffic? I'm like, I don't know. Why don't you know? I'm like, I can't control traffic. Traffic's whatever traffic is. What's the weather? I'm like, I don't know. I can't control the weather. Well, this happened. That's bad. I'm like, yeah, it happened. Move on. So I'm not saying to ignore things, but your attitude controls your actions. This is what we work on. This is what we focus on to be an entrepreneur. Because everybody thinks this is success. This is what it really looks like. I wish this would have been dated. Can you guys see how crappy this looks? I've had this for 20-something years. I should just draw it myself. But it's kind of funny. Nobody's ever redone this slide. And it wasn't dated. I wish somebody would have dated it. But anyway, that's what success really looks like. We see people here at the end. We don't see all the messy stuff along the way. And then Alice in Wonderland, I'm almost done with the fun slides. We'll move into some stuff, but these are like setups. This used to be an age-appropriate question. Now it's a test. How many people have seen Alice in Wonderland? That's still a fair amount. All right. It's changing. Used to be everybody, and now, depending on the demographic of the room, they're like, who's Alice? But there was a famous saying. This cat, I don't remember the Cheshire cat, said, hey, where do you want to go? And Alice says, I don't know. And then he goes, if you don't know where you're going, there is no right answer. It doesn't matter. It's like getting on a road. How many of you guys would go on a road trip and not know where you're going? You could, but you got to know a vision. This one goes over well in the South. I get a lot of groans in LA, so just get ready. If you're a leader and people are following you and you don't know where you're going, it could be dangerous along the way. The grunt, in the South, they love this. When you're like, oh! But again, you're the entrepreneur. If you start building a company, people are dependent on you. They're dependent on you for their mortgage, for their kids, for college, for food. Like, you've got a responsibility to know where you're going because it's a dangerous, dangerous world. And being an entrepreneur is about knowing where you're going, having that vision. And so I created something called the GPS metaphor. This didn't exist years ago. Like any of you guys that are young, GPS didn't used to exist. There was a world where we used to have these maps and call and write. Now I don't even know where I'm going half the time. Just something's talking in my ear and telling me. But GPS is interesting. Would you guys agree if you're going to get in the road and go somewhere, if you set a GPS destination, you don't say, if I'm going to go to, somebody pick a place. I don't care. Go where?
Pacoima.
Where? What's a Pacoima?
It's a place.
It is?
Las Vegas. Obviously, you need
I
a map.
really need a map. All right. We're going. How many of you guys been to Pacoima? Really? Wow. Sorry. I didn't know what a solvang was the other day. Somebody told me. And then I saw a guy walking down the street because mentally we projected. And I was like, oh, can I take a picture of your shirt? Anyway. The point is, we're not going to just get in the car and drive to Pacoima. The GPS we're going to put in. And now if you put a destination in, to me that's like your goal. People ask me all the time, like, oh, well, what happens if you don't meet your goal? And what happens if things bad happen? I'm like, to me it's like GPS. The goal is what kind of company do you want to have? The goal is what kind of sales you want to have. The goal is who do you want your team to be? Who do you want your board to be? That's the goal. But just like when you plug in GPS, you've got some different options. You've got a quick option, a short option, a different route, tolls. Oops, let me go back. So the GPS to me is fascinating because now when I get in, it says, oh, here are 3 or 4 options. And I may pick one. Have you guys ever encountered traffic on the GPS? Traffic to me are like obstacles. You're like, oh, well, what happens if that guy tells you no? Well, it's like traffic. What happens if this goal doesn't happen? Well, it's like traffic. I'm in a way, and then all of a sudden there's a wreck, and I'm on the 405, and I'm stuck. But I'm still moving towards my goal. Even though these obstacles occur along the way, I'm not stuck here. But this is the fun one. You guys ever been following your GPS, and all of a sudden there's a little traffic? You're like, oh, I'm not going to listen anymore because I know where to go. So you take a turn. That's knowledge. Knowledge to me means you say, all right, here's GPS. Let me use my tools. Let me see what's best. But once I'm on the road, if I know other options, I may take my own. That's what we're trying to figure out how to do in sales. So here's my only trick question. I guess I do have a trick one in here. What are these people doing? Rock climbing? Anybody else? Who? You keep getting these right. You and I are gonna talk afterwards. Most people say rock climbing, right? Which is what we think, climbing up. It's easier. It's harder to climb up a mountain than it is to rappel down. It's easier to rappel down a mountain. What's the point of that? Well, in sales, to me, it's easier to start at the top into an organization. It's easier to start at the top with the decision maker than to start at the bottom of a company and try and work my way up. I'm going to show you guys how to rappel into any organization in the world and work your way down. We don't do bottom up. We don't do cold calls. So this is where it starts getting a little fun. Then we're going to get into some techniques. Anybody want to tell me what they do? Have you guys done pitches yet?
Yes.
You have?
One round of 8.
For the 3 minutes?
1 minute.
Oh, 1 minute. Wow. Anybody want to take a shot? You can even take a minute or 60 seconds, 90 seconds. Go ahead.
So, when I lived in Berkeley, I got my car towed for the first time, and then 2 weeks later, I got it towed again. It cost me over $1,500 to get it back. The first time happened because I didn't understand what the parking rules were saying. The second time, I understood what they were saying, but I just forgot to move my car, and that's the reason why most people get parking tickets. My company ParkShark creates a crowdsourced database for potential to help drivers avoid making bad decisions when they park their cars on the street.
Okay. So this is where you guys are going to learn what Janine teaches you in the 1 minute. I'm going to teach you the exact opposite. Not in a bad way. The techniques I love that come out of here, I'm going to teach you guys something that's invertedly practical. Not that yours isn't. But here's what I mean. Most of the time when people talk about what they do, I get confused. Because we tell people what we do. What you do is irrelevant. What you need is important. Think about it for a minute. You can tell me all day long what you do. So this is the example I usually use. Who wants to role play? Here, what's your name? And I'm going to whisper in your, yeah, stand up. I'm going to whisper in your ear. Don't take it personally.
I do.
Okay, I want you to knock that song on that table. What's your name?
Raphael.
Raphael's going to knock a song, meaning he's going to knock. He's got the song in his head. I want you guys to guess what song it is. Don't hum it, just knock. Okay, perfect. That's all we need, Raphael. What's the song?
Happy birthday.
Everybody guesses happy. Any other guesses?
Oh, say, can you see?
Perfect.
That's good.
Here's the point. When Raphael's doing it, I guarantee what he's doing in his head is he's singing it. Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's... When we talk, that's all. That's it. That's it. Yeah.
I kind of like it up here.
No, my stuff's easy. The point is, when we're in sales, we're in our head. We know exactly what we're saying. We know exactly how we're explaining things to people. You talk to people in entertainment, they've got a bunch of buzzwords. They've got a lexicon, enterprise thought. Like, it's all in your head. And when you tell people, they don't get it, and they're like, oh, well, hang on, let me explain it to you. Let me tell you more. It's irrelevant. Who cares? If I tried to explain Moneta Pro to you guys, technically, it's a closed-loop payment system to redeploy assets using an ERP. We offer a proprietary electronic currency. Don, what's up, buddy?
Came to visit.
How are you?
Have a seat.
Sorry.
No, just you're good. Sit down.
I'm gonna sit over
Jump
there.
back.
Come in.
So what happens when I start explaining the company, it just kind of drones off. You guys are going to lose interest. And then I'm going to go, oh, wait, but let me explain to you how cool it is. And then I'm going to jump in and explain more. This is the mistake we make. What you do is irrelevant. What you need is important. That's why we call this now the bullseye beliefs. So here's the psychological sequencing of exactly how this works. This is, just so you know, I've gone through the pain of this. This is 365 books that I read in 6.5 years and 8,000 people I trained. Distilled down to this. Here's what this is. The outside of the bullseye. What's the emotional value of what you do? There's something cool or interesting about what you do. Right? What was your name again?
Dimitri.
Dimitri. I'm listening to Dimitri's company and he's giving... What's cool about what Dimitri does, really cool. Hey, I built a system that helps you save money on parking tickets. Like, we help people save money. You ever got a parking ticket? Yeah, I can help you get out of a parking. How you do it, what, like, and there's a cool story you did, which they'll teach you to build a story. But the point is, there's something cool and emotional because people make decisions emotionally and defend them logically. You want to give them an emotional trigger. That's what you want them to remember. It's not what you do, it's what you do that's cool. What you do that's emotional. Then within there, if you're trying to do sales, this is particularly for sales, but I'll show you how to use it for anything. Is if I'm trying to do sales and I'm doing emotional software, then what are the 3 industries that are best for what I do? Not that I can't be everywhere. If somebody said, oh, I do e-commerce, well, what does that mean? Oh, I sell shoes. Well, would you guys agree there's a big range of shoes? To begin with, there's men's and women's. And the women's have a bigger range than men do. We've got basically shiny dress shoes and casual. But there's a difference. So what are the industries that we're in? Within the industries, who are the companies that are our targets? If I'm doing fashion and I'm doing men's fashion, then I can say, oh, I'm going into men's fashion, primarily jackets. I'm making it up on the fly. I'll show you how it works. So primarily fashion. But the companies I want to sell to are Nordstrom's, Bloomingdale, Macy's, kind of those mid-tier markets. You guys see companies by name. The minute I said Nordstrom's, it pops in your head. It's a visual recollection. It's called isolation of faces. If I just said, oh, I sell jackets, do you know any stores that sell jackets? It's too broad. Our mind can't collapse. What you're trying to do in sales is you're trying to sequence down the way the mind works. We process visuals. So the better you can get at naming companies. The minute I said Nordstrom's, Macy's, Bloomingdale's, did it give you guys kind of an idea? And somebody else might have come up with Kohl's. Or somebody else might have come up with Dillard's. But they're not going to come up with Walmart or Kmart because I didn't ask for Walmart. And they're probably not going to come up with Saks because I didn't ask for Saks. Could I sell in Saks? Yeah, maybe, but this is my best market. This is where I'll have the most success. Within there, who's the title of the person you sell to? I have people all the time. They'll come to me, oh, I want to sell to Disney. Great, who? Well, Disney. Disney has 87,000 employees who all get paid to do something specific. It's not my job to figure out who your buyer is. It's yours. If you're trying to sell in a company, who's the title of the person you normally sell into? And then who are the 5 names of the people that you want to meet? So if I was selling jackets, I would figure out, oh, my buyer is the men's jacket buyer, and I would research who's the men's buyer for Nordstrom's, who's the men's buyer for Blooming, and that's who I would ask for. That's my target. That's my goal. So what do? I make really cool jackets that nobody does. I'm primarily in men's fashion. My companies I want to target are Bloomingdale's and Nordstrom's. I'm going after the chief buyer, and I'm looking to meet Don Barima. All I need people to remember is I make cool jackets, and I want to meet these people. It's a sequence that you learn how to do that not only helps you target and identify your sales, it helps you inversely when you're talking to people where they can help you. I don't sell jackets. I get to this guy. My job is not here. My job's here. So when I was listening to yours, Dimitri, my whole mind is going, all right, I get the emotional value of what you do. My mind's already here. Like, who are you going to sell to? Like, what's the industry you're going to sell to? Who is the people? How can I help you figure out how to sell the company? You convincing me what it does. I don't like. I'm down here trying to figure out names. That's what I'm talking about. What you do is irrelevant. What you need are the people. That's what sales is. So with Moneta Pro, trying to use that same example, it's interesting. I actually had to write some of this up because I don't have to do it mentally anymore because we have the relationships. But if I try to explain Moneta Pro differently, we're an e-commerce platform for a $17 trillion industry. We basically have a platform to help companies do barter. So we help big companies do barter easy. That's all I need you to remember. Like big companies and barter. Our primary industries are airlines, automotive, hotel, food and gas, natural resources. What I'm doing already is I'm sequencing down. Does everybody in the world barter? Yeah. I'm not going after Joe's Pizza. I'm going after big companies in these primary 8 industries. Within there, we're looking at companies like UPS for shipping, United Airlines, Ford, Caterpillar, IBM, WPP for media. Those are the kind of companies we're going after. So what I've done is I've distinguished the companies I want are the Fords and the United Airlines of the world, not the auto mechanic on the corner. Within there, we primarily deal with the chief financial officer or the procurement officer. You guys aren't my primary target. This is kind of my point. For me to convince you how great Moneta Pro is, you're going to leave going, that I guess that was kind of cool. I don't care. I don't care if you remember anything except this and this. If you run into a financial officer of a big company, I want you to think of me and go, oh, Steven's got something cool that can help you. And then look, does everybody know what IQ tests are? Has anybody taken IQ tests? If I have, you'll figure this one out. Directly, I'd like to meet. So here's what we did. This sequenced our mind down to an industry. So now we're thinking smaller for sales. These are the companies we're targeting. These are the titles. These are the names. Richard Perez, Gary Lederman, Bob Shankson. Anybody want to guess who Richard Perez is?
The CEO.
But I'm not looking for CEOs. I'm looking for
CFO.
CFOs. CFOs of what? UPS. Anybody want to guess who Gary is? Of United. Again, we're already dealing with the CEOs here, but I had to go out. I actually went and just Googled who's the CFO of UPS. I'm going to ask people, hey, do you know Richard Perez or Gary? Somebody I know will know one of these guys, or they'll know how to get to them, or they'll know somebody in the organization high enough for me to get in. I'm not going to waste my time on Joe's Pizza or Bob's Auto Mechanics. I'm going to ask for something big. and it's called psychological sequencing. So the sales side is what you need to try and figure out is how do you know what your goals are? How do you identify your companies? Right? And again, Denise, that's why I kept going with yours. My mind immediately is like, where's your best point of entry to sell? And I don't know. I'd have to talk to you more, but it's like, where can you get access to somebody that can help you grow your company?
Right.
And then who within that organization is the right person? And so what we're trying to do is, this is how I just used the same bullseye for our own company. So I kind of gave you guys a little Moneta Pro stuff. This is what we actually just did. And this will show you again the sequencing of how sales work. We just did this for customers. I had my research guy go out and we pulled the global 2,000 companies by assets. Again, very specific. And I'm not trying to sell you guys on my business. You're not my market, but this helps hopefully translate the information. Our companies are the ones who have the largest assets in the world. Not sales, not revenue, assets. But unfortunately, it's interesting, if you go to the global 2,000 companies by assets, the top ones in the world, anybody want to guess what industry they're in that have the most assets?
Oil.
Nope. Good guess though.
Technology.
Nope.
Resale.
Wait, somebody I think said it.
Pharmacy.
No, not pharmacy.
Retail. Real
Nope,
estate?
nope.
IT.
No.
Resale.
Other than attorneys, who do most people hate?
Doctors.
Bankers. It's fascinating. The biggest companies in the world with trillions of dollars of assets are the financial institutions. Money. Money's not our market. So again, what we had to do is we said, all right, out of the top 2,000 companies by assets, that was tab 1 on our spreadsheet. Because we're dealing with investors now. They're like, well, what's your go-to-market strategy? This is my slide. I'm like, oh, well, my go-to-market strategy is, here's the 2,000 largest companies by assets. And I have a spreadsheet, every one of them broken down. Tab 2, our top 10 industries. These are the industries that do the most barter and trade. Again, I talked about it. Heavy equipment, airlines, automotive, consumer electronics, hotel, media, natural. Not that we can't go everywhere. We can, these are the top 10. Within that top 10, we went out and researched and found articles of 88 companies that have a, quote, evidence of trading. Ford traded cars specifically for another asset. IBM traded computers for Olympic sponsorship. Adidas traded $100 million, 30 million of shoes to the New York Yankees. So when the Yankees are, I'm from Kansas City and Chicago, so, but we're good. But they gave $30 million worth of equipment and 70 million of stock. What did Adidas get back? 70 million of media on the YSN, the Yankee Sports Network. So they got 70 million of free advertising, and they gave away 30 million of equipment, and Adidas stock went up $1.2 billion after that announcement. Apparently. But what we did is said, hey, let's find evidence. So we've got the articles that not only identify the companies like Adidas, then I can go, oh, well, who do I have relationships with out of these 88 companies that we found evidence? Adidas being one of them. I happen to know the guy that runs the family office for Adidas. Does anybody know who Adidas is? He was the brother of the guy from Puma who started, and in America we call it Adidas. It's actually Adidas. I was like, wow. So I have an article talking about the trade between the Yankees and Adidas. In the article are the names of the participants from the Yankees and Adidas who actually did that trade. And I have a direct relationship to get to Adidas saying, hey, here's the guy I want to get to. Can you introduce me to this guy at Adidas because he did a trade? So we went to the 88th, and who do I have direct relationships with? And then we targeted down to the 15 that we want. So my target list right now for sales for a company, it's not 2,000. It's not 200, it's 15. Those 15 companies do more corporate trade than Amazon does in total sales. 15 companies we've targeted do $280 billion of trade. Amazon does $205 billion of sales. I start at the top. We could have started at the bottom. We could float around. But this was research. So now, if you're going to raise money, when I sit in front of an investor, like, oh, well, what's your go-to-market strategy? Well, here's my target, and here's my spreadsheet, and here's the list of the people, and here's the ones we know. And that's what we did. And I just used this same thing to hire a CEO because I said, oh, I want a CEO that sold into these kinds of companies, that came from PwC, that did more than $100 million in revenue, was looking for something to do, was no longer at a consulting firm because he left because he didn't get equity. And I hired a guy who ran some LinkedIn articles for me, very specific. And I just hired a guy right there who did $500 million in revenue for PwC, $1.5 billion for Deloitte. So in these companies, he walked us into JetBlue, he walked us into UPS. So again, the sales side, none of this, guys, is not to impress you. It's like, this is how I go through, I live this stuff. If you've got sales, you can say, oh, what does my company do? Like, where am I trying to go for sales? And how do I sequence down to find the target list of the people that I need? And you want to find the best people. This is all about picking the best industry, right? That's why I go back. I'm going to go blah, 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 boom, 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 boom. I should drop this in here. It's back to the GPS. You get in the car here, there's 50 or 100 ways you can get to Poughkeepsie? Pacoima. It's 100 ways. When you guys leave your house, you probably know 15 or 20 or 30 ways to get to where you're going. But there's some that are quicker. This is the goal. For me, sales is all about, here's exactly what I want. What's the most efficient path to get there? And then how do you build a story, right? How do you build a story here so people want to help you? Sales isn't about what you do, it's about what you need. Most people don't know how to identify what they need. And we did this we did the same thing back here. We just did this also with VCs. I'm not a big fan of venture guys. We probably aren't going to talk to them. But we identified for Moneta Pro, we're blockchain, we're fintech, we're enterprise software. So I'm like, all right, how many venture guys invest in those three things? Not invest in everything. There's a bunch of VCs that invest in biotech and nano and stupid shit and cannabis and no, I need guys who actually invest in what I'm doing. Within there, who are the best ones? Who have evidence of investing? Who do I have relationships with? And then who are my top 3 to 5 to 10? And there are very few. Andreessen Horowitz is one. I want Andreessen. I don't really want Sequoia, but we'll talk to him. I don't want Draper. I love Tim. I don't want Fred. There's nobody locally that I want because they add no value for me. Everybody's like, oh, did you talk to anybody local? Who? That's why I was worried about taping this, but I don't care. Like, I know these guys. I've known Pritzkers forever. Like, they're not my market. Me trying to convince Pritzker Group to invest in an enterprise fintech, that's not what they do. They invest in dumb videos like Mike, who sold Dollar Shave Club for $1 billion. And it was $1 billion. I mean, Mike, he did great, but he made stupid videos for Dollar Shave. That's what they invest in. I'm not going to waste my time or theirs. So your sales is about research. It's about how to figure out exactly what you want to need. Last one or two, take meetings early and often. I know that some of the questions in there is, oh, well, how do you know when somebody's just being nice to you? Or how do you know if they're stringing you along? I don't go in with platitudes saying, here's what I'm doing, look how cool this is. We go in early saying, here's what we built, why won't this work? Why won't this work? What am I missing? Who's my competition? Who else is in here talking to you about it? We're thinking about charging you guys this. Is this something you would even pay? If you walk in looking for platitudes, you get nothing back. But people don't want to be negative. They don't want to be mean. They don't want to tell you, oh, your model's stupid, Dimitri, because you're trying to sell to consumers, and I'd go sell the DMV and do a partnership with people. Like, I'm making it up. I'm not picking on you, but I'm saying, you don't go into things trying to convince them how great your idea is. You already think it's great. You want to go into sales early and often saying, What am I missing? Why won't this work? All right, and we're going through this right now with Moneta Pro. We've had a lot of early conversations with our model being a transaction model. Makes sense, right? If you guys used eBay or Amazon, the seller pays a fee. It's standard practice. If you're a company like Ford and you've got 100 locations that each transfer cars and they have to pay a transaction fee when they sell something, there's a nasty little word in corporations. I learned this one a long time ago. I don't like this word. Anybody know? There's a couple bad words if you sell to enterprise corporations. There's one word that starts with a B. And it should be the bad word that we think, but it's a different bad word. Anybody want to guess what the B word is? Budget. Budget. We're talking to a company, they're like, oh, well, we don't mind paying a fee, but whose budget does it come out of? I'm like, the company's budget. They're like, oh, companies don't have budgets. Divisions have budgets. Departments have budgets. I'm like, well, no, we'll just charge the company. The company's like, no, we don't have budgets set up that way. I'm like, oh, well, so why won't this work? Well, we don't know how to allocate. So our sales process now is we're trying to figure out how to price a software that companies want. But should it be subscription model? What will they pay for it? Like, we're taking meetings early and often, not going into these big companies saying, we've got something that's amazing. It's like, hey, we've got something that's cool we think you could use, but what are we missing? Why won't this work? This enables us to get meetings early where we get a lot of customer feedback without going in trying to sell them an inferior product. And you can start building your allegiances and alliances. What can I do to get better? What do I need to one day do business? What would it take to make this happen? So the question on the sheet when it came across was, how do you know when somebody's being truthful? You don't, but if you ask better questions, they're going to give you better answers. Your intelligence increases when you ask questions about why won't this work. Don't try and oversell, try and overlearn. All right, last one. Experience is the greatest teacher. It's also the slowest. So read books, learn from others. That's, the reason you guys are in class. You're trying to accelerate your experience, accelerate your learning curve. So read what you can, learn what you can, do it quickly. That's all my information. I don't use Twitter that much because it's noise. Facebook, I'm maxed out. On LinkedIn, I'm maxed out. If you guys ever solve this, like I'm maxed at 5:30, and there's my information. Am I done on time, or can I give them? I'm going to give you guys 2 more slides. Take a picture because I don't have time to do all of them. Oh, that's my information. If you want the slides, or I've got tons of video and content, all kinds of stuff, just email me, say Founder Institute. I'll send you this one, or I'll send you, you can get from Janine. Great truths real quick. Your greatest strength is your greatest weakness. I don't have time to go into it. My greatest strength, I can open any door, get to anybody, anywhere in the world. Anybody I want to get to, I can get to them. People are like, well, why is that a weakness? Because I don't close doors. I'm great at opening them and getting interest. I have to hire somebody to close them. I suck at operations. Which is fine. You need to know that. People do more to avoid pain than gain pleasure. This is why VCs say you sell more aspirin than vitamins. Make decisions emotionally. Don't ask why, ask why not. If you say it, they doubt it. If they say it, it's true. You need to get the other people to say your product's great. The easiest way to prove this one is, how many people have ever had somebody tell you I love you long before you felt like saying it back? Yeah. If you say it, they doubt it. If they say it, it doesn't matter until they say it back. You can say it all day long. Recognition, referrals, and revenue. Don, you don't know this. I started with 3 R's, and then Ken and I flipped it to 3 C's, and now he still runs 3 C's. I wanted him to, because I liked the recognition first because of the hierarchy of needs. Yeah. But he kept the 3 C's. It's fine. Questions are the keys. Begin with the end in mind. Always flinch. Negotiation. He who speaks first loses. Your best negotiation tip ever. Somebody ever makes you an offer, flinch. Oh, if I'm selling a car for 10 grand and you offer me 6 and I say, great, I'll take it, you immediately think something's wrong. Could have got it for less. If you offer me 10, I flinch. Oh, I'm not sure. Even if I sell it to you at 6, you think you got a better deal. If I'm selling at 10 and you offer me 12, I'm still going to flinch. Because if I don't, you think you could have got it. Like, always flinch. No matter what. The other person will feel better. 99% of things you worry about never happen, so why worry? And then take a picture of this one. I don't have time, but for networking, my best tip is number 6. Stand by the speaker after the event. Have you guys ever been at networking events where somebody's on a panel and when they get done, everybody lines up?
Oh, yeah.
You're like, if you ain't the lead dog, the scene never changes. You're standing in line like a drone, trudging up to talk to the guy at the panel. You know nothing about anybody around you. I walk right up and I stand next to the speaker. And they'll look at you kind of weird, but as long as you're not being creepy and not cutting in line, I'm listening. I'm listening at a couple things. One, I'm listening to what everybody is pitching. I can stand next to a guy and figure out what 40 people in the room are selling to decide who I want to talk to. I learn how they pitch. I learn how the CEO responds. But most importantly, I learn who he refers the people to that he's interested. So by the time I talk to him, it may be 20 or 30 minutes or an hour, I stand and listen. By the time I talk to him, I know what his peaks are, I know his interests, I know who he's going to refer to. All right, and I did this real quick and then I'm done. I know I go over, sorry Chris. I did this with Bobby Kennedy. You guys ever seen Bobby Kennedy? He couldn't be president in my opinion because he talks like he's crying. Kind of sounds like he's whining and without a good voice you can't project. Anyway. I was at an event at CAA talking about water, and Lisa Boyle from the Plastic Pollution Coalition was hammering Bobby Kennedy. Plastic's evil, you need to take care of it. And Bobby was being gracious. So it was interesting to see how he handled somebody that was being very negative and confrontational. But as I stood and listened to him, I realized who his assistant was that he sent the people to that were interested. I realized River Keepers was his big organization he was super interested in with water. And I realized the director of River Keepers was actually in the room, hanging out. Nobody was talking to her because nobody knew who she was. So after about 30 minutes of all these people pitching them, I was getting bored. And I said, Mr. Kennedy, I apologize. This is all I said. You've been amazing. Thank you so much for letting me listen to you. By the way, I think I have something that could help Mary with the River Keepers Association. And I know you send stuff to Joe. Would you mind if I contact Joe directly? And he looked at me and said, do you have a pen? I said, yes, sir. Let's give it to me. Took his card out, wrote his cell phone on the back. He said, just send me a text. I'll put you in touch with Joe, but thank you for asking. And then he turned and went right back to the line. I watched people pitch this guy for 3, 4, 5 minutes. I took 40 seconds, pulled his card, gave him his number. So that one's a little creepy, but if you do it right, it's super cool. All right, again, sorry, that's all I got. Thank you.
Okay, questions for Stephen?
Yeah.
Who's the company you hired to do the research?
The company I hired to do my research, UCLA, and I told him I need a good intern that knows how to research.
All right.
So he was free. Now, he was a 41-year-old intern who had 3 companies in China that made over $5 million. So the UCLA people knew to send me a business guy because they knew what I was doing. But yeah, it was a UCLA intern who was 40, but I had to give him the exact directions. So we went to the Fortune list. I had him pull it by assets, put it in a spreadsheet, organized it by industry. Then we created the separate tabs on a spreadsheet. And it took a while, but now we narrowed down to exactly who our target is.
And it didn't cost a fortune?
Didn't cost anything. It was it took me 15 minutes to fill his paperwork application out, but no, it didn't cost anything.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I wanted to add on to what he was asking, since you brought up the interns. I was wondering this for a while and I did research and I couldn't find any good answers. Like, to hire interns, do you need to have a formed company, or anyone can hire interns?
As far as I know, anyone can hire them. The difference, though, what we did, again, using my techniques is, I said, I need some research interns. I need some interns from UCLA and international marketing. And I researched to see who the head of internship was at UCLA. And then Don and I know we're both part of a group at USC. It's like, we've got 5 professors probably at USC that I can think of offhand. Yeah. Seth Shapiro, Michael Levy. So it was easy to call one of my guys and say, hey, can you introduce me to the head of internships at USC? So I had a professor introduce me, then I showed them what I was doing, and now they feed me what I need.
Norman, there's a bunch of people there. I'm going to just jump into, I read a lot, and I haven't read a tenth of what you described. I mean, my only thought was I wish I'd had some of that 20 years ago, because that was very useful stuff. What Steve is describing seems very specific to what he's doing, but the inventiveness by which he approached those problems is really what you really want to get from this, because you're not doing an enterprise like that, and maybe you don't need to reach the CFO or the procurement person. Maybe you need to find in the company, you want to pitch something Nickelodeon. Well, you don't talk to Viacom, sorry. You talk to the community outreach person. I mean, someone in the company who will refer you is worth 1,000 blind phone calls, because just use your imagination. Who's the person in there that I can solve a problem for? I can do a favor for.
Yeah.
And each one of your companies has that opportunity. Just kind of put your brain on and go, I'm not asking them a favor, I'm doing them a favor.
Yeah, that's again, I have a 10-step isolation program that Janine knows. And that's step 2 is what's in it for you, what's in it for me. How can I figure out how to add value to the other person? But same thing, we have a social media tool. We're going after Instagram. And for the longest time, we thought our market was celebrities and influencers. And then we realized they're not the ones that post. It's actually the social media director. So we had to reinvent and go, oh, all right, we have something cool, but it's not an app. It's an actual social media tool that saves time and money for the social media manager of these primary influencers across sports and fashion. And within there, here are the top 10. Michael Nyman at PMK, Kenny Sunshine. So we just had to sequence down through an industry I'm not familiar with, but I was like, all right, let's readdress this. So to Don's point, it can go through anything. Any company you guys have, the sequencing is what you want to try and understand how to get down. Because again, what you do is important. If you needed somebody at Nickelodeon, it's not just somebody. It's somebody in scripted or unscripted or television or comedy, or not sports, but kids. You want to be on the Nickelodeon award show. Who runs the award show? Who's the head publicist? Who makes the green slime? And just think outside the box to figure out how to get to the people. I'll give you one more. We're dealing with UPS right now, United Parcel Service. They're doing a massive procurement project. And my guy Paul, who came out of PwC, we were on the phone with UPS, and when we hung up, because UPS has given us an objection. Oh, well, this big procurement project's going on, and it's enterprise-wide, and it'll take a while, and we'll have to figure out where you fit. Got off the phone with Paul, said, Paul, give me 15 minutes. I called my other assistant, Shaker, said, I want you to do this. He didn't understand it. But I went out and said, UPS procurement project, McKinsey, because we learned that McKinsey was doing it. I'm trying to find an article. I'm trying to find a press release. I'm trying to find some person bragging about having UPS as a customer because I want the McKinsey. They're the ones driving the project. It's not UPS. My customer at that point is McKinsey, the consulting firm. I found them. After about 9 Google searches, turning things around. UPS and McKinsey, procurement project UPS, United Parcel Service. The chief marketing officer for UPS, lady named Christine Liu, if I remember, was at McKinsey for 26 years. That's how McKinsey got in. I was like, oh, so it's Christine. Who do we know that knows Christine? And now we've got a meeting with the head of UPS. I would have never landed on her, but again, it's just sales guys is thinking outside the box. And the way I found her was Reuters. Reuters has a list of all the directors with their bios. So it came up in a Google search. It was my own research because the guys didn't quite know how to think like that. But yeah, then we identified who brought McKinsey in, and now we're working through McKinsey to figure out who's running the UPS project because we need to get in their, what's it called down in a company? It's not workflow or sequencing or process like you've done enterprise. It
Depends on the company.
Depends on the company.
The decision chain.
They've got something where you have to be in process
There's a decision
to even
chain.
be considered. So we're
Okay.
just saying, yeah.
Oh, wait a minute. We want to take a 5 because we have to be out of here by 8:45.
Okay, last question. I'll answer it quick.
Okay.
So how do you identify the actual person? How do you get their contact information? 'Cause I think that's the biggest challenge that I face.
Well, the contact information was there, but I'm not going to contact her cold. Now that I've got the name and I know the McKinsey project name, now we're starting to reach out to our network to see who knows her and who can introduce us. If I had to go in cold, I could, but I won't do that. I'll find somebody that knows her, but I don't even need her now. I've identified what the McKinsey project is called internally through some of the
Right.
research.
So let's just say another project that you're looking to identify
Mhm.
the key people, identify the key people, and then from that point, how do you go about? Do you just look at their network? I mean, is this like a LinkedIn?
You
process
can
or
do
just-
LinkedIn and see who you know. You can email people. Say, hey, I'm trying to get into UPS. I've identified this person. Does anybody know them? But that the way I wrote that bullseye technique, I wouldn't say who do you know. It would be, hey, I'm doing something cool with UPS. I can help them save a lot of money. We've identified this person. Well, we leverage our network. I don't do anything cold. But also, if you remember on my bullseye, I had 88 companies that had evidence of training, and then I had identified 44 where I had a personal relationship. The UPS thing's an outlier. My guy Paul brought that in. I wouldn't have gone to UPS because I didn't know anybody. But it was his relationship, so it was a different path.
Who's Paul? I'm sorry.
Oh, the guy that I hired as CEO, he ran Deloitte Touche's fintech practice for $1.5 billion. Then PwC brought him back. He built $500 million in revenue.
So by hiring someone that has connections, it kind of fills the gap.
Yeah, we were trying to raise $10 million in this next round. $3 million we actually need. $7 million is what I call credibility capital. I don't need it. But if I go try and sell to IBM, they want me to be funded at a certain amount. With him coming on, it's credibility capital. He walked us into UPS because he's done business with them for 18 years, so my capital requirements changed. So it was a credibility move versus a capital move. But I hired up. I hired a guy that's done infinitely more than I have.
Well, let's thank Stephen.